Hi everyone, my name's Irvine Kaur and I am the founder of Novelly. I am here today to share with you a free resource on creative writing for your child and for yourself as well to use when assisting your child to write stories or practice the writing component for your NAPLAN tests, your selective tests, and HSC. This step-by-step process will help your child to write better stories, have a process around the writing, and also just build their communication skills. So I'm very excited to get into this. So let's get going. So let's unlock your child's creative spark together. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So a little bit about me. I am Irving Kaur. I founded Novelly in 2024, and I developed this 6-step method through consistently tutoring and teaching students in English and creative writing, um, and have seen results from this very process. And I think it's going to be really helpful and eye-opening for you as well, as a parent or as someone who wants to improve their creative writing skills. Okay, so yeah, and I have a background obviously in creative writing, which is my passion. Basically, I have been reading since I was, I loved reading since I was a child, and I always wanted to be a writer, but I was always told that that was an unrealistic sort of expectation. And I'm here to tell you that it's not, because you can definitely become a writer if if you're really passionate about it. And you know any child that says they want to write should be encouraged, and that's why I'm here today. So yeah, I did an undergraduate degree in creative writing at UTS, followed by a commerce degree at UNSW. Now I'm studying a research degree back at UTS again on creative writing, back to my past. So I love my writing. I'm going to be doing a research project, and I'm in the process of doing a research project which has a creative component to it, which will be my second novel. My first novel is on Amazon. It's called The Heart Clock, and really excited to run this program for students. So let's get going. All right. So why does writing matter? Writing matters because it helps you build communication and empathy. So the communication side is really important for children, especially in their formative years, building their communication skills so they can express themselves to teachers, students, and parents alike. It's important to be able to communicate your feelings. So creative writing and reading stories can help students to build their vocabulary list and also to understand, um, you know, uh, characters and build empathy for characters in stories, which in turn will help them build empathy for the people around them. So there's that. And then, of course, to develop resilience and confidence. So I had a chat with a PhD professor not long ago, and he mentioned that a really interesting piece of advice, and that was that writing is rewriting. So if you haven't got something down on the page, then you can't really edit and rewrite it. But if you do have something down on the page, then you can always make it better. And no matter how many rounds of edits you go through, you've got to stay resilient. You've got to stay confident. So that's where the confidence comes in. And once your child has done this process once or twice, you just rinse and repeat and keep going. And it's going to get better and better and better each time your child writes a story. Practice makes perfect. All right. So next we have encouraging. It encourages imagination and problem solving. Yes, it does encourage. It definitely does encourage imagination and problem solving, because you have to be able to imagine a setting. You have to be able to imagine your character, and also the place and the time that they're in, and of course the plots. You've got to imagine that as well. So there's a lot of creative work going on, and also problem solving work as well, trying to solve plot holes, trying to solve problems with your story so that you can make it better. That's all involved in creative writing. So, and last but not least, I haven't put this on there, although I know a lot of parents are definitely interested in this element of why writing matters. To pass your NAPLAN, to pass your selective test, to pass your HSC test, all of exams. So all of these, I guess, videos and resources and guided writing sessions that we provide in the Author Accelerator program are focused around specific HSC modules or elements of the English curriculum that students will have to go through in their sort of year 7 to 12. We do have some younger students, having said that, but definitely creative writing is more on the older end, especially with the resource. I think I think it's definitely focused around years sort of 8 and up, year 7 and up, I would say, just because that's when writing really takes hold and it becomes part of the syllabus. So let's keep going and we'll move on to the next slide, which is the 6-step system. So here's the secret sauce. This is what you've been waiting for. So let's get into it. So we've got 6 steps in the writing process that we've developed at Novelly. The first step is to do some research. Okay. So what I mean by that is there's 2 sides to this coin. The first type of research is creative research. So by creative research, what I mean by that is, looking at books, stories, and films, just like the story that you want to write. So I would provide a writing prompt. So I will provide a writing prompt right now. So for example, the very angry dragon saw a princess up in a tower. Okay, so the very angry dragon saw a princess up in a tower. So which means that we are definitely focusing a little bit around fantasy and but potentially a bit like fairy tales and things like that. So if you wanted to research this particular writing prompt, the one I've just provided, and you wanted your child to research it, you would ask them to look up stories with princesses and dragons in them, and other sort of fantasy fiction, interesting takes on the usual fairy tale story. Make it unique. Try to find unique fiction around that writing prompt. Try to find films as well. So I know one film with a dragon and a princess, and that is the new film by Millie Bobby Brown. It is called Damsel. So that is one example of a visual text, a film that could provide you with a bit of an example of how to write for this particular prompt. Once you have done your creative research and you've got a couple of books and stories that you think are quite relevant to the writing prompt, it's time to look at sort of more non-fiction resources as well. So that's the second part of research, where you look at, folklore and mythology and all of that around dragons, and sort of what's the history of dragons type of thing. So you need to look at both. You need to look at the creative, but also look at, sort of more mythology and analysis and essays around dragons and things like that. So you've got 2 different sides. Even if you can find a couple of facts about, different religions and what dragons mean in each one, that's also quite relevant and interesting. So where to look for these resources? Your local library, also on Trove. So Trove is Trove. It is the National Library of Australia's categorical program that you can access it for free on Google. So just search Trove and it'll come up, and you can just search, relevant news articles, books, all that sort of thing, and you can also figure out where you can borrow those books as well through Trove. The final resource is Google Scholar. So just use Google Scholar to, I think Google Scholar is something that you learn how to use. So you add in your keywords and sort of see what comes up, play around with it. And once you've done your research, it's time to brainstorm some ideas. So that was research. And one last thing, so when you do look at stories, you need to take notes on the characters, the setting, and the story itself, so you understand the story better. Ask your child when you do when they do read fiction, um, every book they read, try to have a discussion with them about that book so that you understand that they've retained the information in that book, they've understood the story, they understand the characters, because oftentimes, parents will pretty much, they will use, students will read a story and say, hey, yes, I've read it, it's all good, it was a good book. And then you ask them what it was about and all of that kind of thing. And they say, I don't know what it was just about. That's because they didn't fully retain the information. So maybe at the end of every chapter, ask them a couple of questions to make sure that they were able to comprehend what was in the chapter. And if they weren't able to, ask them to go back and read it again and then come back to you and tell you. That exercise is really important for just to understand whether your child is retaining that information from the book. And then you can always ask me questions about strategies about how to help them retain information. And that's all to do with reading comprehension, again, which ties into, sort of selective and plan testing in English. And the next part, here we go. So that's step 2 is brainstorming ideas. So using a mind map, a simple mind map, you can put the main idea at the center. So that in this case, the writing prompt, and then branch out and figure out ask your child to figure out who the characters are going to be, where and when the story is set, and the key problems in the story. Chat, do a bit of a back and forth between you and your child to sort of figure out what's going to happen in your story, and take it from there. Also, what you can do is ask what if. So what if questions often help your child to formulate problems and a plot. So for example, what if the dragon couldn't fly to save the princess, couldn't fly up to the tower to save the princess? What would happen then? How would the dragon get up the steps? Is there something dark lurking in the castle? Think about asking those questions and get your child to answer them. So there you go. That's your brainstorming phase. Step 3 is to create your plot. Draw a bit of a story arc, just like a mountain. So usually it's called a story mountain. So when you say, hey, make a story mountain, your child's going to come up with the beginning, the middle, and the end, right at the end of the story. There are more complex ways to do this, and they are covered in the Author Accelerator program itself in the plot building resource video that we created. But at the same time, you really want to kind of set the scene in the beginning and with the 5 senses: who, what, when, where, and why, and also create a scene where your character is struggling, or you have to show that the character's life is not perfect at the start of the story, in the opening image. And then you've got to have some kind of incident, something that goes wrong, that propels the character forward in the story, and eventually leads up to the climax, where they're facing they're building up to the climax, and then finally the big problem happens at the climax. And before that, in the rising action, you can kind of put a few hints, and plant the seeds for that major problem to come up in the climax. And then once you hit the climax, you have to figure out, okay, has my character successfully solved the problem in the climax? Did they win or did they lose? And if they won, what does their life look like after? And that's, your falling action and your closing image. There are some more resources inside the Author Accelerator. So I'm really excited to get into that, and also to, personally help each and every student with their story arcs and planning during our guided writing sessions. There'll be more about that in the next video. So I'm going to run through the Author Accelerator program and what we offer, and the problems that it solves. So stay tuned. So let's move on to step 4. So step 4 is to develop your characters. Now, your characters, in order to create multi-dimensional characters, it's really important that we focus on four key, oops, four key things. And those four things are the first thing that we need to focus on is their appearance and their name. So figure out what they look like. It's easier for some students to do visual. Some students think visually. If your child draws and likes to draw, ask them to draw a picture of a picture of the main character. What do they look like? Do they have any defining features? So, for example, in Harry Potter, we had, Harry's got a scar on his forehead from the time when Voldemort killed his parents. So similarly, your character should have some defining features, physical features on their person that pretty much tell a story. So, for example, if your protagonist is a child, maybe that child has a scar on their arm or on their leg, and that signifies an accident or something that happened in the past. They might have they might have a certain backpack that they carry with them everywhere for security. They might, have a special pair of earrings that they love, or something that every single piece of information about your character should be carefully thought out and for a reason that plays a role in the story. So there is that, the appearance, and then finally the traits. So there are positive and negative personality traits that a character can have. For example, a character can be um, a character can be funny and personable and all of those things, but then they might have a negative trait. Might be that they are a little bit arrogant. So there's always two sides to a coin. In this case, you have to think about positive and negative traits that your character has. So I would suggest two positive traits and two negative traits that you can think of for your character, which is usually that their personality is usually a result of their backstory. So that's the next element of your character that you need to think about. So backstory is what happened in your character's life before the story started. What made them who they are. And it's really, really fun to make up backstories. So, this is a chance for your child to have fun with it and just, roll with it and have a great time. So I would really, emphasize the backstory as a really important part of the character development process. And then finally, you have voice. How does your character talk? Does your character have a stutter? Does your character have, something that makes them kind of maybe they struggle with talking and they struggle with talking to other people, and that might be the reason they have a stutter because they get nervous. There's a bunch of reasons. There's a bunch of reasons why a character could have, a certain way of talking. So that's step 4. Step 5 is building your setting. So what is the place and when is the story set and what place is it set in? So you have to make sure that you understand these. So before your child starts writing their story. And you can use your 5 senses to kind of ask your child to describe what they can see, what they can hear, what they can smell, what they can taste and touch. This is really, really important. Okay, next, we have start writing. So now it's time to start writing your story. Follow the plan. Ask your child to write a rough draft. It's okay to make mistakes, and you can always edit later. Final tips for parents: celebrate effort. Make sure you reward your child when they've written a great story, or if they've tried their hand at writing. Just reward them in some way. You might be taking them out for an ice cream or taking them to the library, whatever works for you. Read and talk about the stories together. So if your child's reading a story, you read it too, so that you guys can talk about it together. Finally, make time for daily writing. Doesn't have to be every day, just maybe once or twice a week would be more than enough. And then set up a fun writing space. So make writing fun. Maybe you want to decorate your child's writing desk, or you want to, add in some little decorations or something along those lines. Make it fun for them, and they'll do much better that way. Okay, so you can join the Novelly community, follow me on Instagram or on Facebook. Just search Novelly School for Instagram and search Novelly for on Facebook. So you can always join our community. Just so we'll be releasing new and free resources every week. So just follow that, and we'll be providing resources for students. And finally, every child has a story to tell, and I can't wait to hear what your child has to say, and what story they have to tell. Encourage your child, and let's do this. Let's raise storytellers together. Thanks so much for listening to the video. We'll see you in the next one. We've got another video after this, which will be focusing on the Author Accelerator program and kind of what it has to offer, what to expect, and then you can always get in touch with me. I believe my email is just irveen, @novelly.com.au. So take a look at that. If you take a look at the information in the next video, and if you do have any questions, then do reach out to me. The way the program is structured will be covered in the next video. So see you very soon.